At 3 a.m., Victoria's phone buzzed with a message that would shatter everything she thought she knew about love. Stop breathing by midnight tomorrow, or we'll stop it for you. 7 months pregnant and alone in the darkness, she realized the man sleeping beside her, her husband of 9 years, might be the one trying to kill her. The prenatal vitamins he lovingly brought her each morning, the special smoothies he insisted were packed with nutrients for the baby. Everything she'd trusted as love was actually something far more sinister. But Marcus Hammond made one fatal mistake. He underestimated a billionaire father's love for his daughter. What he thought was the perfect murder plot was about to become his own destruction. Because William Sterling had been watching, waiting, and planning 3 moves ahead. This is the true story of a conspiracy so twisted, it reads like fiction. A tale of poison disguised as vitamins, a hitman who wasn't what he seemed, and a father's love that literally saved 2 lives through the most elaborate undercover operation you've ever heard. What happens when a pregnant woman discovers her fairy tale marriage is actually a death sentence? And how far will a father go to protect his family when the law can't touch the predator living in his daughter's home? The answer will shock you. The sharp buzz of Victoria Sterling Hammond's phone cuts through the silence at 3 in the morning, like a blade through silk. She jolts awake in the king-size bed she shares with her husband Marcus, her 7-month pregnant belly making the sudden movement awkward and painful. The baby kicks hard against her ribs, as if sensing the danger that's about to unfold. Victoria's hand instinctively moves to her swollen abdomen, a protective gesture that's become second nature over the past months. The bedroom is bathed in shadows, heavy curtains blocking out the streetlights from their upscale neighborhood. Marcus sleeps soundly beside her, his breathing deep and even, one arm flung carelessly across the Egyptian cotton sheets. He looks peaceful, innocent, nothing like the man she's beginning to suspect he might actually be. Victoria reaches for her phone on the mahogany nightstand, squinting at the bright screen that feels like a spotlight in the darkness. The blue light illuminates her face, showing the exhaustion that's been building for weeks. The stress lines that shouldn't be there on a 32-year-old woman who should be glowing with pregnancy hormones. Unknown number. Text message. Stop breathing by midnight tomorrow, or we'll stop it for you. Her heart hammers against her ribs so hard she can feel it in her throat. She reads the message again, hoping the words will somehow change, that this is some kind of cruel joke or mistake. They don't change. The threat sits there on her screen, bold and terrifying in its simplicity. The baby kicks again, harder this time, as if responding to her mother's sudden spike in adrenaline. Victoria places both hands on her belly, trying to calm herself, trying to think rationally. But rational thought is difficult when someone has just threatened to kill you in your own bedroom. She glances at Marcus again. His phone sits face down on his nightstand, the way it always does when he sleeps. But even in the darkness, she can see the screen lighting up with notifications, missed calls, text messages. At 3 in the morning, carefully, trying not to wake him, Victoria lifts Marcus's phone. The screen shows 17 missed calls, all from the same contact, C. Sloane Carmichael. The name hits Victoria like ice water flooding her veins. The real estate agent who's been calling Marcus at odd hours for the past 3 months. The woman who somehow knows their wedding anniversary date, who sends Marcus text messages about urgent meetings that always seem to happen when Victoria is at her doctor's appointments. The reason Marcus has been working late every Friday night, coming home with the scent of perfume that isn't Victoria's. The reason their marriage has been slowly crumbling for months, though Victoria has been too afraid to admit it to herself. Marcus. She reaches over and shakes his shoulder, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus, wake up. He stirs, his eyes opening slowly, squinting in the darkness like someone surfacing from deep water. What time is it? Someone just threatened to kill me. The words hang in the air between them, stark and impossible. Marcus sits up immediately, suddenly alert in a way that makes Victoria wonder if he was really asleep at all. What, let me see that? Victoria shows him the text message, watching his face carefully in the phone's glow. She's learned to read the micro-expressions that cross his features, the tiny tells that reveal when he's lying. And there it is, a flicker of something that isn't surprise or shock. It's recognition. He's seen this message before, or something like it. It's probably just a prank. Honey, he says, his voice carefully controlled. You know how crazy people get online these days. Probably some teenager trying to be funny. But Victoria knows that look. She's seen it before. The same expression when she asked about the hotel receipt she found in his jacket pocket. The same carefully neutral face when she mentioned smelling unfamiliar perfume on his shirts. The same deflection when she suggested they try marriage counseling to work through their problems. Her phone buzzes again, the sound like an electric shock in the quiet room. New message, same unknown number. $40,000, half now, half when it's done. She won't suffer long. Make it look natural. This time Marcus sees the message too, leaning over her shoulder to read it. His face goes completely white, all the blood draining from his features like someone has pulled a plug. We need to call the police, Victoria says, her voice stronger now, driven by a mother's instinct to protect her unborn child. No. The word comes too fast, too sharp. Marcus catches himself, tries to soften his tone. I mean, let's think about this rationally. It could be teenagers playing pranks, could be someone trying to scam us, scare us into sending money. The baby kicks again, a series of sharp jabs against Victoria's ribs that feel almost like Morse code. Oh, help us. Something is wrong. Victoria places both hands on her belly again, feeling the solid warmth of her daughter moving inside her. She's 7 months pregnant, 31 weeks. The baby could survive if she were born now, but it would be dangerous, risky, the kind of risk that no mother wants to take. 23 years old when she married Marcus. 32 now. 9 years of marriage. 9 years of love and trust and building a life together. 9 years that feel like they're dissolving in real time as she watches her husband's face in the glow of her phone screen. She does what she always does when she's overwhelmed, when the world feels like it's spinning too fast. She counts to 10 in her head, using the breathing technique her father taught her when she was 8 years old and terrified of giving presentations at school. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Deep breath in. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Deep breath out. The technique that got her through her mother's funeral when she was 15, through college presentations and job interviews and the fight with her father about marrying Marcus 3 years ago. I'm calling my father, she says quietly, reaching for her phone again. Marcus's expression shifts dramatically, like storm clouds gathering across a clear sky. Tori, your father hasn't spoken to you in 3 years. Not since the wedding. He made it very clear how he feels about me, about us. He said you would try to hurt me eventually. Maybe I should have listened. The words fall between them like stones into still water, creating ripples that spread outward into every corner of their relationship. Marcus opens his mouth to argue, then closes it again. He knows she's right. He knows what her father said, the warnings he gave, the investigations he ran. Victoria dials the number she's memorized but never called, the number she's thought about calling 100 times over the past 3 years, but never had the courage to use. It rings once. Victoria. William Sterling's voice is gravelly with sleep, but instantly alert. The voice of a man who's built a business empire by being ready for anything at any hour. Daddy. The word comes out broken, smaller than she intended. She hasn't called him that since she was 15 years old and thought she knew everything about love and life and how the world worked. I think someone's trying to kill me. Silence on the other end of the line. Not the silence of someone who's shocked or confused, but the silence of someone who's been waiting for this call, dreading it, but knowing it would come eventually. Read me the messages, he says finally. Word for word. Don't leave anything out. Victoria does, her voice shaking as she recites the threats. The specific dollar amount, the promise that she won't suffer. With each word, she can hear her father's breathing change, can feel his anger building even through the phone connection. I'll be there in 20 minutes, William says. Don't let Marcus out of your sight, not for any reason. Do you understand me? Dad, you live 40 minutes away. 20 minutes, he repeats firmly. I've been closer than you think. The line goes dead. Victoria stares at her phone, processing what her father just said. He's been closer than she thinks, which means he's been watching, waiting. protecting her even when she told him to stay away. Marcus climbs out of bed and begins pacing to the window, pulling back the heavy curtain to peer out at the street. His movements are agitated, nervous, like a caged animal looking for an escape route. "This is insane," he mutters, pulling his own phone from the nightstand. "Who would want to hurt you? You don't have any enemies. You work in marketing. For God's sake." But even as he says it, Marcus is dialing someone, his thumbs moving quickly across the screen. Victoria watches him, noting the way his hands shake slightly, the way he positions himself between her and the bedroom door. "Who are you calling?" she asks. "My lawyer. This is serious. Tori, we need legal advice." At 3:30 in the morning, Marcus doesn't answer, just presses the phone to his ear and waits. Victoria can hear it ringing. Once, twice, 3 times before someone picks up. "I don't care what time it is," Marcus says into the phone, his voice low and urgent. "I need to know if—" "Yes, I'll hold." Victoria studies her husband's profile in the moonlight streaming through the window. The man she fell in love with 9 years ago. The man who proposed to her on a beach in Hawaii. Who cried when she told him she was pregnant. Who spent weeks assembling the crib for their daughter with meticulous care. The man who might be trying to have her killed. Outside, car doors slam in rapid succession. Victoria gets up from the bed, moving carefully with her pregnant belly, and peers through the blinds. 2 black SUVs sit in their driveway, engines running. Her father's security team moves across their lawn like shadows, efficient and silent, taking positions around the house. William Sterling doesn't travel anywhere without protection. He's made too many enemies in the business world, stepped on too many toes building his tech empire. But seeing his security team on her front lawn brings the reality of the situation into sharp focus. This isn't a prank. This isn't teenagers playing games. Someone really wants her dead. Marcus finishes his phone call and hangs up, running his hands through his hair in a gesture of frustration that Victoria has seen 1,000 times before. "What did your lawyer say?" she asks. He's looking into it, checking to see if there have been similar threats in the area. But Victoria can tell he's lying. She's become an expert at reading Marcus's lies over the past few months, noting the way his voice changes pitch, the way he can't quite meet her eyes when he's not telling the truth. The doorbell rings, echoing through their house like a gunshot. Victoria makes her way downstairs, one hand on the banister for support, one hand protecting her belly. Marcus follows close behind her, his footsteps heavy on the hardwood floors. Her father stands on the front porch in a perfectly tailored suit despite the early hour. William Sterling has always been a man who dresses for success, who presents himself to the world with absolute confidence and control. At 58, he's still intimidating enough to make grown men stutter and stumble over their words. But he looks older than she remembers, more gray at his temples, deeper lines around his steel gray eyes that match her own. The years of estrangement have aged him, just as they've aged her. When he looks at her pregnant belly, his expression softens for just a moment, showing a glimpse of the father who taught her to ride a bike and helped her with calculus homework and walked her down the aisle even though he disapproved of her choice. "May I come in?" His voice is formal, careful, the voice of a man trying not to overstep boundaries that his daughter set 3 years ago. Victoria steps aside, gesturing him into the foyer. Marcus extends his hand for a shake, the polite gesture of a son-in-law trying to maintain civility. William ignores it completely. "Show me the threats," he says, his attention focused entirely on Victoria. She hands over her phone with trembling fingers. William reads both messages, his jaw tightening with each word. Behind him, Victoria can see his security team through the front windows, positioned at strategic points around the property. "This isn't random," he says finally, looking up from the phone. "Someone knows your routine, your schedule, your daily patterns. Someone close to you." "That's ridiculous," Marcus interjects, stepping forward. "Who would want to hurt Tori? She doesn't have any enemies. This has to be some kind of mistake." William's gaze turns predatory, the look of a shark who's caught the scent of blood in the water. Someone who stands to gain from her death. Someone who maybe recently increased her life insurance coverage. Someone who's been making unusual withdrawals from joint bank accounts. Marcus goes pale, all the color draining from his face like someone has turned off a switch. How would you possibly know anything about our finances? Because I've been watching you since the day you married my daughter, William says coldly. Waiting for you to show your true colors, waiting for you to prove me right. Victoria's inner voice speaks with sudden, crystal clarity. I'm not paranoid. Daddy always said to trust my instincts. I should have listened to him from the beginning. The baby kicks hard, a sharp jab that makes Victoria wince and place both hands on her belly. William notices immediately, his attention shifting to his daughter's discomfort. When's the last time you saw your doctor? He asks. Tuesday? Everything was fine. Normal checkup. We're going to the hospital now. Dad, it's 4 in the morning. I just saw Dr. Mitchell 2 days ago. Dr. Mitchell will meet us there. I called her on the way over. Marcus steps forward, inserting himself between Victoria and her father. You can't just commandeer my wife's medical care. You have no right to make decisions about her treatment. William's voice drops to a whisper, but the menace in it is unmistakable. Watch me. Victoria remembers the prenuptial agreement Marcus insisted she signed before their wedding. How her father's face had closed off when she told him about it. The way he'd said, "Some mistakes you have to make yourself, sweetheart. But I'll be here when you're ready to come home." She's ready now. She should have been ready 3 years ago. As they prepare to leave for the hospital, Victoria catches Marcus texting someone, his thumbs moving rapidly across his phone screen. He thinks she's not watching, but she sees everything now. Sees the contact name before he quickly deletes the message. Sloan. Car doors slam outside like gunshots echoing through the quiet suburban neighborhood. Victoria settles carefully into the passenger seat of her father's armored Mercedes, the leather cool against her back despite the warmth of the summer night. The security team flanks their vehicle in a precise formation that speaks of military training and serious money. Marcus follows in his own BMW, talking rapidly on his phone, his gestures visible through the windshield even in the darkness. Who's he calling at this hour? William asks, adjusting his rearview mirror to keep Marcus's car in constant sight. He says it's his lawyer. William's laugh is sharp and humorless. At 4 in the morning, of course. The drive to Mercy General Hospital takes exactly 12 minutes through empty streets lined with sleeping houses. Victoria watches familiar landmarks pass by. The coffee shop where she and Marcus had their first date, the park where he proposed, the elementary school where their daughter will go to kindergarten in 5 years if she lives long enough to see it. She thinks about the last time she and her father were in a car together. The morning of her wedding day, 3 years ago. The final conversation before she walked down the aisle to marry a man her father was convinced would destroy her. He's using you, sweetheart, William had said, his hands gripping the steering wheel of his Bentley as they sat in the church parking lot. I've run comprehensive background checks. I know about his gambling debts from college, the women he was seeing right up until your engagement, the way he's been positioning himself to access your trust fund. You hired private investigators to spy on my fiancé. I hired investigators to protect my daughter. There's a difference. Victoria had chosen Marcus anyway. Chosen love over logic, trust over evidence, hope over her father's warnings. She'd walked down that aisle in her grandmother's dress, carrying white roses, believing that love could conquer anything. Now, 3 years later, she wonders if love was ever part of the equation at all. At the hospital, Dr. Sarah Mitchell meets them in the emergency entrance, fully dressed despite the hour. Her medical bag in one hand and a tablet in the other. She's been Victoria's obstetrician for the entire pregnancy. A woman in her early 40s with kind eyes and gentle hands who's delivered hundreds of babies safely into the world. Victoria, how are you feeling? Doctor, Mitchell asks, guiding them toward a private examination room on the maternity ward. Scared, confused. The baby's been kicking more than usual, almost like she's trying to tell me something. We'll check everything thoroughly. Dr. Mitchell says, her voice professionally calm but her eyes concerned. Mr. Sterling filled me in on the situation during our phone call. The examination room is painted in soothing pastels, with watercolor prints of flowers on the walls and a window that looks out over the hospital's healing garden. Under normal circumstances, it would be a peaceful place. Tonight, it feels like a bunker. Marcus arrives 5 minutes later, his face flushed and his hair disheveled from running through the hospital corridors. His shirt is wrinkled, his tie askew, and there's something wild in his eyes that Victoria has never seen before. "What's the emergency?" he asks, slightly out of breath. "Is the baby okay? Is Victoria okay?" Dr. Mitchell is already drawing blood, multiple vials that she labels with careful precision. "We're running a comprehensive panel," she explains. "Given the threats Mrs. Hammond received, we need to rule out any medical complications that might make her particularly vulnerable." "What kind of complications?" Victoria asks, watching the dark red blood flow into the tubes. "Elevated blood pressure that could indicate preeclampsia, anemia that might suggest nutritional deficiencies, infection markers, blood chemistry abnormalities, anything that might put you or the baby at risk." The blood draw takes 15 minutes, with Dr. Mitchell taking enough samples to run every test in the hospital's repertoire. She disappears to personally rush the labs while William's security team secures the entire maternity ward, posting guards at every entrance and exit. Marcus paces the small examination room like a caged animal, his movements agitated and purposeless. "This is all completely unnecessary drama," he says, his voice pitched higher than normal. "Those text messages were probably from some teenager trying to be funny. Some kid who got hold of Victoria's phone number somehow. $40,000 is a significant amount of money for a teenage prank," William observes quietly, watching Marcus pace. "How do you know it's real money? It could be completely fabricated. People make fake offers all the time online. It's probably some kind of internet hoax." Victoria studies her husband's face, noting the way his eyes don't quite meet hers when he speaks, the slight tremor in his left hand that he's trying to hide by shoving it in his pocket. These are new tells, stress responses she's never seen before in 9 years of marriage. "Marcus," she says slowly, testing his reaction. "How long have you known Sloane Carmichael?" He nearly drops the cup of coffee he's been holding, the liquid sloshing dangerously close to the rim. "I already told you. I don't know what you're talking about. 17 missed calls on your phone tonight, all from S.C., all at hours when no legitimate business would be conducted. Sloane is a colleague. We're working together on a commercial property development deal. It's complicated, involves multiple investors, lots of moving parts. A colleague who calls you at 3 in the morning?" Marcus stands abruptly, moving toward the door. "I need some air. This room is too small, too stuffy." "Sit down," William says, his voice carrying the authority of a man who's spent decades commanding boardrooms and crushing business rivals. Something in his tone makes Marcus freeze in place, his hand on the door handle. Without any visible signal, 2 of William's security team appear in the hallway outside the room, their presence blocking any potential escape routes. "My daughter is fighting for her life because of decisions you've made," William continues, his calm facade beginning to crack. "The least you can do is sit still while we figure out how to keep her alive." The mask slips for just a moment, and Victoria sees the grief her father has been carrying for 3 years. The pain of losing his daughter to a man he knew would hurt her. The guilt of being right about Marcus, but being unable to prove it in time. "Do you have any idea what Victoria went through when you convinced her to cut contact with me?" William's voice is deadly quiet. "She cried herself to sleep for months. Called me 17 times and hung up before I could answer. Wrote letters she never sent." Marcus's phone buzzes with an incoming text. He glances at it quickly, then tries to hide the screen. But William is faster. He sees the message before Marcus can delete it. From Sloane. "Is it done? Timeline is critical." William's eyes narrow. "Show me your phone. Now." "You have absolutely no right to." "I have every right. You're about to become the father of my grandchild. If you survive the next hour," which is looking increasingly unlikely. William's memories flood back unbidden. Victoria at 5 years old, finding a wounded bird in their garden and insisting they take it to a veterinarian. Sitting up all night to make sure it survived, feeding it with an eyedropper every 2 hours. Victoria at 16, volunteering at homeless shelters on Christmas morning instead of opening presents. Victoria at 22, graduating summa cum laude from Northwestern and hugging him so tight he thought his ribs might crack. The daughter he raised to be strong and independent and kind. The daughter Marcus has been slowly destroying for 3 years. Marcus reluctantly hands over his phone, his face pale and defeated. William scrolls through the recent messages, his expression growing darker with each exchange he reads. $50,000 to end my daughter's life, he says finally, his voice carrying a chill that could freeze blood. Apparently, I underestimated the depth of your desperation. You don't understand the whole situation, Marcus says quickly. Sloan she's not entirely stable. She's been threatening to expose some business dealings, some investments that might not look completely legitimate to outside observers. She said if I didn't help her with this, she'd destroy my career. So you decided that murdering your pregnant wife was the better option than having your business practices scrutinized. Dr. Mitchell returns before Marcus can answer, her face white as she reviews the blood work results on her tablet. The color has drained from her features completely, and her hands shake slightly as she processes what she's seeing. Mrs. Hammond, she says carefully, choosing her words with the precision of someone delivering devastating news. We need to discuss these results. Privately, if you prefer. But William steps forward, his presence filling the small room. Whatever you have to say to my daughter, you can say in front of me. No more secrets. No more lies. Dr. Mitchell looks between them, recognizing the family resemblance in their steel-gray eyes and determined jawlines. She nods and takes a deep breath. Your blood shows significantly elevated levels of anticoagulants, she explains. Blood-thinning medications. They're extremely dangerous during pregnancy, especially in the third trimester. Victoria's hands move instinctively to cover her belly, a protective gesture that's become automatic over the past 7 months. I'm not taking any blood thinners. I'm not taking any medications except prenatal vitamins. The levels we're seeing suggest regular dosing over approximately the past 2 weeks. Small amounts, but consistent and cumulative. Are you absolutely certain you haven't been taking any medication? Even herbal supplements or over-the-counter remedies? William's presence expands to fill the examination room, like a gathering storm. Someone's been poisoning her. That's completely impossible, Victoria whispers. But even as she denies it, memories begin flooding back. The prenatal vitamins Marcus brings her every morning, delivered to her bedside with orange juice and toast cut into perfect triangles. The special smoothies he makes, claiming they're packed with nutrients essential for fetal development. The way he's been so attentive to her diet lately, so concerned about her health and the baby's growth, so guilty about something he won't name. We need to induce labor immediately, Dr. Mitchell says, her voice urgent. The baby is showing signs of distress, and if these levels continue to climb, we could lose you both. It's too early, Victoria protests. I'm only 31 weeks. She needs more time to develop. The NICU here is excellent. Mrs. Hammond, we have some of the best neonatal specialists in the state, but if we wait any longer, the anticoagulants in your system could cause catastrophic bleeding during delivery. William takes his daughter's hand, his fingers warm and steady and familiar. The same hands that taught her to tie her shoes and helped her with algebra homework and held her when she cried over her first broken heart. I won't let anything happen to you or my grandchild, he says quietly. The words hit Victoria like a physical blow to the chest. Grandchild. The first time he's acknowledged the baby since she told him about the pregnancy 6 months ago. The first time in 3 years he's spoken to her like she's still his daughter, still part of his family. Marcus burst through the examination room door, having somehow evaded the security team for a few moments. What's happening? They wouldn't let me back in. The guards said there were medical complications. Someone's been systematically poisoning Victoria, William says, his voice deadly calm. For weeks, slowly and methodically. That's absolutely insane, Marcus says, but his voice cracks slightly on the words. I would never hurt Tori or the baby. I love them both more than my own life. The only people with daily access to her food and medications are you and Elena, William continues relentlessly. Elena has worked for my family for 15 years. She would die before harming Victoria. Marcus's phone buzzes again. He glances at it reflexively, then quickly shoves it back in his pocket, but not before Victoria catches a glimpse of the contact name on the screen. Sloan? Who's texting you? Victoria asks, her voice stronger than it's been all night. Nobody important. Just work updates. At 4:30 in the morning, Marcus doesn't answer. Instead, he moves closer to Victoria's bedside, reaching for her hand with what might have been intended as a comforting gesture. But Victoria pulls away from his touch, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time in years. How long have you been planning this? She asked quietly. The question hangs in the air between them like a blade. Marcus opens his mouth to deny it, to deflect and minimize and gaslight the way he's been doing for months. But something in Victoria's eyes stops him. Maybe it's the steel-gray determination she inherited from her father. Maybe it's the absolute certainty of a woman who's finally seen through the lies. Victoria remembers something else now, a detail that seemed insignificant at the time. How the prenatal vitamins started tasting different about 3 weeks ago. More bitter, with an aftertaste that lingered in her mouth for hours. When she mentioned it to Marcus, he laughed it off, saying the manufacturer had probably changed their formula. He insisted she keep taking them because they were the most expensive brand available. The best money could buy. Money. It always comes back to money with Marcus. Victoria feels the baby's movements growing weaker, less frequent, as if her daughter is struggling against the poison flowing through both their bloodstreams. I can't lose this baby, she whispers. I won't let you take her from me. Her phone buzzes with another message. The same unknown number, change of plans. Make it look like childbirth complications. Much cleaner that way. Natural causes. This time, the message includes a photograph. A man in a dark jacket standing in the hospital parking garage, partially hidden behind a concrete pillar. He's watching the entrance to the maternity ward, waiting for something. William's security team springs into immediate action. Lockdown protocol activated, one of them says into his radio. Potential threat in the building. Victoria's breathing becomes shallow and rapid, the familiar spiral of a panic attack beginning to take hold. She closes her eyes and counts her heartbeats the way her father taught her when she was 8 years old and terrified of everything. 1, 2, 3, 4. Find the rhythm. 5, 6, 7, 8. Control what you can control. 9, 10. The technique that got her through her mother's death when she was 15. Through college presentations and job interviews and the loneliest nights of her marriage when Marcus came home smelling like another woman's perfume. Mrs. Hammond, we need to move you to the surgical suite immediately, Dr. Mitchell says, checking the fetal monitor with growing concern. Your blood pressure is spiking dangerously high. As they wheel Victoria toward the operating room, she catches Marcus on his phone again, speaking in urgent whispers. This time she hears him clearly, every word cutting through her heart like a scalpel. It's too late to stop it now, he says. She's already being prepped for surgery. Everything will look completely natural. Through the surgical suite's observation window, Victoria sees him, the maintenance worker she's never seen before. Despite having been in this hospital dozens of times for prenatal appointments, baseball cap pulled low over his face, ID badge hanging from his belt. He's pushing a cart full of cleaning supplies, moving through the corridors with the practiced invisibility of someone who belongs. But there's something in his posture, something predatory in the way he moves, that makes Victoria's blood freeze. The hitman is already inside the hospital, and her husband just gave him permission to kill her. Medical equipment beeps frantically in staccato rhythms that sound like a heart learning to skip beats. Your blood work shows dangerously elevated levels of anticoagulants, Dr. Mitchell explains again, her voice tight with professional urgency. Blood-thinning medications that are extremely contraindicated during pregnancy, especially in the 3rd trimester. Victoria's hands move instinctively to cover her swollen belly, the gesture automatic after 7 months of protecting the life growing inside her. The baby's movements have grown sluggish over the past hour, as if she's swimming through thick water instead of amniotic fluid. I'm not taking any blood thinners, Victoria insists, but even as the words leave her mouth, she can hear the doubt creeping into her voice. The only medications I take are prenatal vitamins and the occasional antacid. The levels we're detecting suggest consistent dosing over approximately the past 2 to 3 weeks. Dr. Mitchell continues, reviewing the lab results on her tablet with growing concern. Small amounts administered regularly, probably daily. The pattern is very specific. Are you absolutely certain you haven't been taking any additional supplements, even herbal remedies or over-the-counter medications? William's presence fills the examination room like an approaching thunderstorm, his rage barely contained beneath a veneer of civilized control. Someone has been systematically poisoning my daughter. That's completely impossible, Victoria whispers. But even as she denies it, memories begin surfacing like bubbles rising from the depths of a pond. The prenatal vitamins Marcus brings her every morning, delivered to her bedside on a silver tray with fresh orange juice and toast cut into perfect triangles. He started this ritual about a month ago, claiming he wanted to take better care of her as the pregnancy progressed. The vitamins came from a special pharmacy across town. He said, organic and specially formulated for pregnant women with her specific blood type. The special smoothies he makes every afternoon. Thick green concoctions that he insists are packed with nutrients essential for fetal brain development, spinach and kale, and protein powder, with a bitter aftertaste that he explains away as the natural flavor of healthy vegetables. The way he's been so attentive to her diet lately, so concerned about every bite she takes, monitoring her food intake with the dedication of a scientist conducting an experiment, so guilty about something he refuses to name or acknowledge. We need to induce labor within the next hour, Dr. Mitchell says, her voice carrying the authority of someone who's delivered thousands of babies safely into the world. The fetal monitoring shows signs of distress that are consistent with anticoagulant exposure. If we wait any longer, we risk catastrophic bleeding that could kill you both. It's too early, Victoria protests, her voice breaking on the words. I'm only 31 weeks. She needs at least 6 more weeks to fully develop her lungs. Mrs. Hammond, the NICU here is one of the finest in the country. We have neonatal specialists who routinely save babies born much earlier than 31 weeks. But your daughter's best chance of survival is immediate delivery before the anticoagulants in your system cause irreversible damage. William takes his daughter's hand, his fingers warm and calloused and steady, the same hands that taught her to ride a bicycle without training wheels when she was 6, that helped her build science fair projects and checked her homework and held her while she sobbed over her mother's cancer diagnosis. I won't let anything happen to you or my grandchild, he says quietly, his voice carrying the absolute certainty of a man who spent his entire life protecting the people he loves. The words hit Victoria like a physical impact, stealing her breath and bringing tears to her eyes. Grandchild. The first time he's acknowledged the baby since she told him about the pregnancy. The first time in 3 years he's spoken to her like she's still his daughter, still worthy of his love and protection. Marcus bursts through the examination room door like a man fleeing a burning building, his face flushed and his clothing disheveled. 2 security guards follow close behind him, their hands resting casually on their weapons. What's happening? Marcus demands, slightly out of breath. Why wouldn't they let me back in? The guards said there were serious medical complications. Someone has been systematically poisoning Victoria, William says, his voice carrying the cold precision of a surgical blade. For weeks, slowly and methodically, with anticoagulants designed to cause bleeding complications during childbirth. That's absolutely insane, Marcus says, but his voice cracks slightly on the denial. I would never hurt Tori or our baby. I love them both more than anything in this world. The only people with daily, unsupervised access to her food and medications are you and Elena. William continues with relentless logic. Elena Rodriguez has worked for my family for 15 years. She's watched Victoria grow up. She would cut off her own hands before harming her. Marcus's phone buzzes with an incoming message. He glances at it reflexively, his face paling as he reads whatever appeared on the screen. He tries to shove the phone back in his pocket, but not before Victoria catches a glimpse of the contact name. Sloan. Who's texting you at this hour? Victoria asks, her voice stronger than it's been all night. Nobody important, just work updates from the East Coast. You know how the markets open early. The markets don't open at 4:30 in the morning. Marcus? Marcus doesn't answer. Instead, he moves closer to Victoria's bedside, reaching for her hand with what might have been intended as a comforting gesture. But Victoria pulls away from his touch, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time in their 9-year relationship. How long have you been planning this? She asked quietly. The question hangs in the air between them like poison gas. Marcus opens his mouth to deny it, to deflect and minimize and gaslight the way he's been doing for months. But something in Victoria's steel gray eyes stops him cold. Victoria remembers more details now, pieces of a puzzle that's been forming just beneath her conscious awareness for weeks. How the prenatal vitamins started tasting different about 3 weeks ago, with a metallic bitterness that lingered in her mouth for hours. When she mentioned it to Marcus, he laughed it off, saying the manufacturer had probably updated their formula with additional nutrients. He insisted she keep taking them, because they were the most expensive brand available. The best that money could buy. Money that she now realizes came from joint accounts he'd been systematically draining for months. The special smoothies that made her nauseous in a way that felt wrong, different from normal pregnancy morning sickness. The way Marcus would watch her drink them, his eyes tracking every sip with an intensity that she'd mistaken for loving concern. The life insurance policy he'd convinced her to increase 6 months ago, claiming they needed better coverage with a baby coming. The policy that would pay him $2.5 million if she died of natural causes. "I can't lose this baby," Victoria whispers, her hands pressed firmly against her belly. "I won't let you take her from me." Her phone buzzes with another message from the same unknown number. "Change of plans. Hospital setting provides perfect cover. Make it look like childbirth complications. Much cleaner. Natural causes. No investigation." This time, the message includes a photograph that makes Victoria's blood freeze in her veins. A man in a dark maintenance uniform standing in the hospital parking garage, partially hidden behind a concrete pillar. He's watching the entrance to the maternity ward through professional-grade binoculars. Waiting for his cue to move, William's security team explodes into action like a military unit receiving enemy contact. "Lockdown protocol activated," the team leader says into his radio. "Potential hostile actor inside the facility. Initiating protective measures." Victoria's breathing becomes shallow and rapid, the familiar spiral of a panic attack beginning to take hold. Her heart pounds against her ribs so hard she can hear it in her ears. She closes her eyes and counts her heartbeats the way her father taught her when she was 8 years old and afraid of everything. 1, 2, 3, 4. Find the rhythm in chaos. 5, 6, 7, 8. Control what you can control. 9, 10. The breathing technique that got her through her mother's slow death from ovarian cancer. Through college presentations where she felt like everyone was staring at her. Through job interviews and first dates and the loneliest nights of her marriage when Marcus came home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. "Mrs. Hammond, we need to move you to the surgical suite immediately," Dr. Mitchell says, checking the fetal monitors with growing alarm. "Your blood pressure is climbing dangerously high, and the baby's heart rate is showing signs of distress." As they prepare to wheel her hospital bed toward the operating room, Victoria catches Marcus on his phone again. He's speaking in urgent whispers, turned away from the group, but the acoustics of the room carry his words clearly. "It's too late to stop it now," he says into the phone. "She's already being prepped for emergency surgery. Everything will look completely natural. Complications happen all the time with high-risk pregnancies." Through the small window in the examination room door, Victoria sees him again. The maintenance worker she's never seen before. Despite having been in this hospital dozens of times for prenatal appointments over the past 7 months, baseball cap pulled low over weathered features, hospital ID badge swinging from his belt as he moves. He's pushing a cart full of cleaning supplies through the corridor with the practiced invisibility of someone who belongs in this environment. But there's something predatory in his movements, something calculating in the way he positions himself near the entrance to the surgical wing. The hitman is already inside the hospital. Her husband has just given him permission to complete the job. As they wheel her toward surgery, Victoria feels her daughter's movements growing weaker, less frequent, as if the baby is struggling against the anticoagulants flooding their shared bloodstream. The monitors attached to her belly show a heart rate that's too slow, too irregular. "Fight, baby girl," Victoria whispers, her hands pressed against the sensor patches. "Fight for both of us." But she can feel herself growing weaker too. The poison in her system working exactly as Marcus and Sloan planned. In 20 minutes, she'll be on an operating table, vulnerable and unconscious, while a professional killer masquerades as a janitor just outside the surgical suite. Her inner voice speaks with sudden, crystalline clarity. "I thought the prison door was locked. I was my own warden all along." All those times she dismissed her father's warnings about Marcus. All those moments when her instincts screamed that something was wrong. But she chose to believe Marcus's explanations instead of trusting her own judgment. All those nights when she lay awake, knowing that her marriage was slowly killing her, but afraid to admit it even to herself. Now the killing has become literal. As the surgical suite doors swing open to receive her, Victoria sees the maintenance worker again. He's closer now, just around the corner from the operating room, and for just a moment, before the pre-anesthesia medications begin to take effect, She could swear she recognizes something familiar in his posture, something that makes her feel safer instead of more afraid, something that looks like protection instead of threat. But that's impossible. Her father is in the waiting room, arguing with Marcus about visiting rights and legal custody. The maintenance worker is a stranger, a killer hired by her husband's mistress to make her death look accidental. Isn't he? The last thing Victoria sees before the drugs pull her into darkness is the maintenance worker's reflection in the surgical suite's observation window. For just a split second, their eyes meet across the glass. Steel gray eyes that look exactly like her own. Eyes that look like home. The elevator dings with mechanical precision as it reaches the fourth floor of Mercy General Hospital at 4:43 in the morning. The maintenance worker steps out with practiced ease, pushing his cart of cleaning supplies with the unhurried confidence of someone who belongs in this sterile, fluorescent-lit environment. Baseball cap pulled low over weathered features. Hospital ID badge swaying gently from his belt with each measured step. To the skeletal night shift staff, he's completely invisible. Just another anonymous employee keeping the hospital clean and functional while the rest of the world sleeps. The kind of person who blends into the background so thoroughly that witnesses couldn't describe him if their lives depended on it. Jimmy Torino, according to his laminated badge, hired 3 days ago through a temporary staffing agency. Background check, clean as surgical instruments. References solid and verifiable. Employment history showing 15 years of reliable janitorial work at medical facilities across 3 states, but Jimmy Torino doesn't exist. The man beneath the carefully constructed identity moves through the hospital corridors with the fluid confidence of someone who's spent the last 72 hours memorizing every detail of this building. He knows the security camera blind spots, the staff rotation schedules, the exact timing of nurse rounds, the locations of emergency exits and communication hubs. He's been planning this infiltration with the meticulous attention to detail that's made him one of the most successful men in America. In the surgical suite, Dr. Mitchell works with controlled urgency to save both Victoria and her unborn daughter. The monitors surrounding the operating table show distress signals that have nothing to do with normal childbirth complications. The anticoagulants coursing through Victoria's bloodstream are fighting against every medication the medical team needs for a safe delivery. "We're losing her," the anesthesiologist calls out, his voice tight with professional concern. "Blood pressure dropping rapidly. I need to adjust the medication cocktail." Victoria's consciousness drifts between waking and sleeping, between light and darkness, tethered to reality by the thinnest of threads. She hears voices around her, urgent medical terminology, the beeping of machines, the rustle of surgical scrubs, but also something else that doesn't belong in an operating room. Her father's voice, though he's supposed to be in the waiting room dealing with Marcus. "Maintain the appearance of complications," the familiar voice says quietly, just beyond the edge of her drug-induced haze. "But keep her stable. Can you do that without raising suspicions?" "Yes, sir," Dr. Mitchell responds. "But we need to neutralize the anticoagulants immediately, or the bleeding will become genuinely life-threatening." Victoria realizes with dawning clarity that she's been hearing fragments of this conversation in her dreams for days. Her subconscious mind picking up pieces of a plan she wasn't supposed to understand. Her father's voice giving medical instructions. Dr. Mitchell asking technical questions about blood chemistry and drug interactions. A plan that's been in motion since before she ever received those threatening text messages. Her inner voice whispers with sudden understanding, "I should have trusted my instincts. I should have called Dad the moment something felt wrong." Down in the waiting room, the man everyone believes to be William Sterling maintains his stern, watchful expression while Marcus grows increasingly agitated. But this isn't actually William Sterling sitting in the uncomfortable plastic chair, reading financial reports on his tablet while his daughter fights for her life. This is David Chen, a former Secret Service agent who's worked personal protection for the Sterling family for 8 years. The physical resemblance is close enough to fool casual observation, especially at 4 in the morning in a dimly lit hospital waiting area. The same height and build, the same silver hair, the same steel gray eyes that run in the Sterling bloodline. The same intimidating presence that makes grown men choose their words carefully. The real William Sterling is currently disguised as Jimmy Torino, moving through the hospital corridors with deadly purpose while gathering the final pieces of evidence needed to destroy the conspiracy that threatens his family. How long have you known Sloane Carmichael? The fake William asked Marcus with calculated casualness. Marcus nearly drops his coffee cup, the liquid sloshing dangerously close to the rim. I already told you multiple times. I don't know what you're talking about. 17 missed calls on your phone tonight, all from the same contact, all at hours when no legitimate business would be conducted. Sloane is a business colleague. We're working together on a commercial property development deal that involves multiple investors and complex financing arrangements. A business colleague who calls you at 3 in the morning. Marcus stands abruptly, his chair scraping against the linoleum floor. I need some air. This room is too cramped, too stuffy. Sit down, the fake William says, his voice carrying the unmistakable authority of a man who spent decades commanding corporate boardrooms and destroying business rivals. Something in his tone makes Marcus freeze in place, his hand halfway to the door handle. Without any visible signal from the fake William, two actual Sterling security guards materialize in the hallway outside the waiting room, their presence blocking any potential escape routes. My daughter is fighting for her life because of decisions you've made, the fake William continues, allowing his carefully maintained facade to crack slightly. The least you can do is remain seated while we determine how to keep her and my grandchild alive. The mask slips just enough to reveal the carefully rehearsed grief that David Chen has been perfecting for 3 days. The pain of a father watching his daughter suffer. The guilt of being unable to prevent her marriage to a man who would eventually try to kill her. Marcus's phone buzzes with another incoming text message. He glances at it quickly, his face paling as he processes whatever appeared on the screen. He tries to hide the phone, but the fake William is faster, catching a glimpse of the message before Marcus can delete it. From Sloane, status update required. Timeline is critical for Phase 2. Show me your phone, the fake William demands. Immediately. You have absolutely no legal right to search my personal property. I have every right. You're about to become the father of my grandchild. If you survive the next hour, which is looking increasingly doubtful. Meanwhile, 4 floors above them, the real William Sterling remembers his daughter at different stages of her life. Victoria at 5 years old, finding a wounded bird in their garden and insisting they take it to an emergency veterinary clinic. Sitting up all night to feed it with an eyedropper every 2 hours, refusing to sleep until she was certain it would survive. Victoria at 16, volunteering at homeless shelters on Christmas morning instead of opening presents, explaining that some people needed help more than she needed new clothes. Victoria at 22, graduating summa cum laude from Northwestern University with degrees in marketing and psychology, hugging him so tightly at the ceremony that he thought his ribs might crack. The daughter he raised to be strong and independent and compassionate. The daughter Marcus Hammond has been systematically destroying for 3 years through psychological manipulation and now attempted murder. Marcus reluctantly hands over his phone, his face pale and defeated. The fake William scrolls through recent messages with Marcus's contacts, his expression growing darker with each exchange he discovers. $50,000 to end my daughter's life, he says finally, his voice carrying a chill that could freeze blood in veins. Apparently, I significantly underestimated the depth of your financial desperation. You don't understand the complete situation, Marcus says quickly, his words tumbling over each other in his haste to explain. Sloane isn't entirely stable mentally. She's been threatening to expose some business dealings, some investment strategies that might not appear completely legitimate to outside investigators. She said if I didn't help her with this plan, she would destroy my career and send me to federal prison. So you determined that murdering your pregnant wife was preferable to having your business practices scrutinized by federal investigators. Dr. Mitchell returns to check on the waiting families before Marcus can formulate an answer. Her surgical scrubs replaced by clean ones, her face showing the exhaustion of a doctor who's been fighting to save 2 lives simultaneously. How is she? The fake William asks, standing immediately. Stable for now. We've managed to neutralize most of the anticoagulants in her system, but she's not out of danger yet. The baby is showing signs of distress, but her vital signs are stronger than we initially feared. Marcus jumps to his feet. Can I see her? I need to see my wife. She's still unconscious from the anesthesia. Perhaps in another hour or 2, when she's more stable? What Marcus doesn't know is that Victoria isn't unconscious from anesthesia at all. She's been given a carefully calibrated combination of medications that mimic unconsciousness, while allowing her to remain partially aware of her surroundings. Dr. Mitchell and the real William Sterling have been planning this deception for 3 days, since the moment they confirmed that Sloane Carmichael had put out a contract on Victoria's life. The fake William's phone rings with an incoming call. He glances at the caller ID, then steps away from Marcus to answer it privately. "Everything is proceeding according to plan," he says quietly into the phone. "The target has provided additional incriminating evidence. We should have everything we need for federal prosecution within the next 30 minutes. Marcus tries to overhear the conversation, but the fake William moves too far away for him to catch specific words. He assumes it's one of William Sterling's many business associates, probably calling with updates on stock prices or merger negotiations. He has no idea that he's listening to a federal agent coordinating the largest domestic terrorism sting operation in the hospital's history. The elevator dings again, and the real William Sterling emerges on the surgical floor, still disguised as Jimmy Torino. He pushes his maintenance cart toward the operating room where his daughter lies unconscious, passing nurses and doctors who don't give him a second glance. Dr. Mitchell sees him through the surgical suite's observation window and nods almost imperceptibly. Phase 2 is about to begin. The maintenance worker enters the sterile environment of the operating room, wheeling his cart of cleaning supplies with professional efficiency. "Sir, you can't be in here during an active surgery," Dr. Mitchell says loudly enough for the surgical team to hear. "Special cleaning protocol." Jimmy responds in a voice that's been roughened by years of cigarettes he never smoked and damaged by construction work he never performed. "Hospital administration ordered immediate sterilization of this wing. Possible contamination from the emergency admission tonight." But his eyes meet Victoria's briefly as she drifts in and out of her medicated haze. Even through the elaborate disguise, even through the haze of carefully administered drugs, she sees something achingly familiar in those steel gray eyes. Something that makes her feel protected for the first time in hours. Something that looks like the love she's been missing for 3 years. The baby's heart rate spikes suddenly on the fetal monitor, and Dr. Mitchell moves quickly to adjust the medications flowing into Victoria's IV line. "Almost there, little one," she whispers, her gloved hands working with practiced precision. "Your mama's fighting so hard for you. Just hold on a little longer." William as Jimmy positions himself where he can observe both the surgery and the corridor beyond the operating room. Every entrance to this wing is now monitored by his security team, though they're disguised as hospital maintenance staff, visiting family members, and late-shift medical personnel. The trap has been set with mechanical precision. Marcus thinks he's coordinating with a professional killer, but he's actually providing evidence to federal agents who've been recording every word for the past week. The prey has walked willingly into the snare, bringing incriminating evidence and additional co-conspirators with him. All that remains is the safe delivery of William's granddaughter and the complete destruction of everyone who threatened his family. Victoria's hand moves slightly, her fingers reaching unconsciously toward the maintenance worker, who isn't what he seems. Even in her drugged state, some part of her recognizes safety when she sees it, recognizes the father who's never stopped protecting her, even when she ordered him to stay away, recognizes home. Urgent whispers fill the surgical suite like prayers offered to an unforgiving God. William Sterling made his first $1 billion by consistently staying 3 moves ahead of his business rivals, anticipating their strategies before they'd fully formed them in their own minds. Tonight's operation represents the culmination of those same strategic principles, applied to a far more personal battlefield. The maintenance worker approaches the operating table where his daughter lies, fighting for her life. Every step calculated with the precision of a chess master, executing a long-planned gambit. What Marcus Hammond doesn't know, what he cannot possibly comprehend, is that Jimmy Torino is an elaborate fiction constructed over 72 hours of meticulous preparation. The man beneath the carefully crafted disguise spent the last 3 days infiltrating Mercy General's security protocols and staff rotation schedules, studying architectural blueprints and emergency procedures, memorizing the names and faces of every employee who works the night shift. When Sloane Carmichael contacted a professional killer through dark web assassination markets, she believed she was hiring ruthless efficiency from an experienced contractor with an untraceable reputation. Instead, her inquiry landed directly on the desk of Marcus Chen, one of William's cybersecurity specialists who'd been monitoring criminal networks as part of an ongoing federal task force investigating domestic terrorism. The Sterling family has been 3 steps ahead of this conspiracy from its inception. In the surgical suite, Dr. Mitchell works with controlled urgency to deliver Victoria's baby safely while maintaining the appearance of life-threatening complications. The monitors surrounding the operating table display genuine distress signals. The anticoagulants in Victoria's system are creating real medical challenges that require immediate intervention. "We're losing her," the anesthesiologist calls out, his voice carrying just enough panic to sound authentic to any potential eavesdroppers. Blood pressure dropping dangerously fast. Victoria's consciousness floats between waking and dreaming, tethered to reality by threads of awareness that grow stronger as the antidotes work through her bloodstream. She hears voices around her, medical terminology delivered with urgent precision, the rhythmic beeping of life support equipment, the whispered prayers of nurses who've delivered thousands of babies safely into an uncertain world. But she also hears something else, something that doesn't belong in an operating room filled with strangers. Her father's voice, speaking quietly just beyond the edge of her drug-induced haze. "Maintain the appearance of complications for another 15 minutes, he says to Dr. Mitchell, "but keep her completely stable. Can you manage that without compromising either patient?" "Yes, sir. The antidotes are working faster than we anticipated. Her blood chemistry should normalize within the next 20 minutes. Victoria realizes with dawning clarity that she's been hearing fragments of this conversation in her dreams for days. Her subconscious mind processing pieces of a protection plan she wasn't supposed to understand consciously. Her father's voice giving medical instructions. Dr. Mitchell asking technical questions about drug interactions and emergency procedures. A plan that's been developing since the moment Williams investigators first detected unusual activity in Marcus's financial account 6 months ago. Her inner voice speaks with sudden understanding. "I should have trusted my instincts from the beginning. I should have called Dad the first time something felt wrong." 3 floors below them, the body double maintains Williams' characteristic stern expression while Marcus grows increasingly agitated in the family waiting area. David Chen has spent 8 years studying William Sterling's mannerisms and speech patterns, perfecting an impersonation that can fool casual observers in electronic surveillance systems. "Why isn't the surgery taking longer?" Marcus mutters, checking his phone compulsively. "First babies usually take hours to deliver. The complications should be lasting longer than this." The fake William studies him with predatory intensity. "Are you particularly eager for something to happen?" "No, I'm just worried about Tori and the baby. This whole situation has me completely on edge." Marcus's phone buzzes with another incoming message. He reads it quickly, then types a response before the fake William can see the screen content. What Marcus doesn't realize is that his text messages are being intercepted in real time by federal agents operating from a mobile command center in the hospital parking garage. Every word he sends to Sloane Carmichael is being recorded as evidence in a conspiracy case that will destroy both their lives. The real William Sterling, disguised as Jimmy Torino, moves through the hospital corridors gathering final pieces of evidence while coordinating with the federal task force that's been building this case for months. His cybersecurity team has been monitoring dark web assassination markets since Victoria married Marcus. Knowing that a man with gambling debts and expensive tastes would eventually become desperate enough to consider extreme solutions, in the surgical suite, Victoria's vital signs stabilize as the last traces of anticoagulants are neutralized by targeted antidotes. Dr. Mitchell works with the focused intensity of a surgeon who's been preparing for this exact scenario for 72 hours. Heart rate normalizing, the anesthesiologist reports. Blood pressure climbing back into safe parameters. Victoria's consciousness begins to clear as the carefully calibrated medications work through her system. She's not actually under general anesthesia. She's been given a sophisticated combination of drugs that create the appearance of unconsciousness while allowing her to remain partially aware of her surroundings. The deception has been planned down to the smallest detail. In the waiting room, the fake Williams phone rings with an incoming call from federal agents coordinating the final phase of their operation. "Status report," he says quietly, stepping away from Marcus to take the call privately. "Target has provided sufficient evidence for prosecution under federal conspiracy statutes," comes the response. "We have recorded admissions, financial records, communication logs, and photographic evidence of intent to commit murder for hire." Marcus tries to eavesdrop on the conversation, but the fake William moves too far away for him to understand specific words. He assumes it's one of William Sterling's international business associates, probably calling with updates on overseas markets or merger negotiations. He has no idea he's listening to the coordination of his own arrest. The fake William ends his call and returns to his seat, maintaining the expression of a concerned father waiting for news about his daughter's condition. "Any updates from the surgical team?" Marcus asks, trying to sound like a worried husband instead of a man calculating insurance payouts. "Dr. Mitchell said they're making progress. These things take time when there are complications." Marcus checks his phone again. Another message from Sloan. "Phase 2 authorization required. Window of opportunity closing rapidly." He types back quickly. "Complications ongoing. Maintain position. Execute on my signal." Every word is recorded by federal agents. The elevator dings, and the real William Sterling emerges on the surgical floor, pushing his maintenance cart toward the operating room, where his daughter and granddaughter are fighting for their lives. He passes nurses and medical residents who don't give him a second glance. Just another invisible member of the night shift staff keeping the hospital functional. Dr. Mitchell sees him through the surgical suite's observation window and provides an almost imperceptible nod. The final phase is about to begin. The maintenance worker enters the sterile environment with professional authority, wheeling his cart of cleaning supplies like he's performed this routine hundreds of times before. "Sir, you can't be in here during an active surgical procedure," Dr. Mitchell says, her voice carrying just enough irritation to sound authentic. "Special sterilization protocol," Jimmy responds, his voice roughened by the accent he's been perfecting for 3 days. Hospital administration ordered immediate environmental decontamination of this wing. Possible exposure from the emergency admission. His eyes meet Victoria's as she drifts between consciousness and the medicated haze that's been protecting her from the full trauma of tonight's events. Even through the elaborate disguise, gray hair, weathered skin, colored contact lenses that change his eye color from steel gray to brown, she recognizes something achingly familiar. Something that makes her feel safer than she's felt in months. Something that looks like the unconditional love she's been missing for 3 years. The baby's heart rate spikes suddenly on the fetal monitor, and Dr. Mitchell moves with practiced efficiency to deliver Victoria's daughter into the world. The infant emerges small but fighting, her lungs strong enough to produce the cry that signals successful adaptation to life outside the womb. "She's beautiful," Dr. Mitchell whispers, tears visible above her surgical mask. "Small but perfect. Her vital signs are excellent." William as Jimmy positions himself where he can observe both the successful delivery and the corridor beyond the operating room. Every entrance to this wing is now secured by his team, though they're disguised as hospital personnel, family members of other patients, and medical equipment technicians. The trap has been set with mechanical precision. Marcus believes he's coordinating with a professional killer, but he's actually providing evidence to federal agents who've been building an airtight case against him for months. Victoria's daughter opens her eyes for the first time, revealing steel gray irises identical to her mother's and grandfather's. 3 generations of Sterling women, and this newest addition will grow up knowing she's protected by people who would die before letting harm come to her. "What are you going to name her?" the maintenance worker asks quietly, dropping his fake accent for just a moment. Victoria's eyes focus on his face with sudden clarity. "Hope," she whispers. "Hope Sterling." The name carries layers of meaning that only the two of them understand. Hope for healing the breach that separated them for 3 years. Hope for a future where family loyalty trumps everything else. Hope that love can survive even the most devastating betrayals. Marcus's phone buzzes with what will be his final message as a free man. From Sloan. "Execute now. Window closing." He types back confirmed. Phase 2 authorized. Federal agents monitoring his communications immediately relay the message to the arrest teams positioned throughout the hospital. The conspiracy has provided everything needed for successful prosecution under federal murder-for-hire statutes. Victoria's hand reaches toward the maintenance worker, who isn't what he seems. Even in her vulnerable state, some part of her recognizes the protection that's been surrounding her all along, recognizes the father who never stopped loving her, even when she pushed him away, recognizes home in the most unlikely disguise. The baby grips her grandfather's finger with surprising strength, and William Sterling knows that every risk he's taken tonight has been worth this moment. His family is safe. His enemies are about to be destroyed. Justice is about to be served with the same precision he's applied to every other challenge in his life. A baby's first cry pierces the surgical suite at exactly 4:47 in the morning, sharp and clear and absolutely perfect. Victoria's daughter enters the world 2 months early, but fighting with the determination of someone who's already survived an assassination attempt. Her lungs work with impressive efficiency. Her tiny fists clench with surprising strength, and her grip is so determined that she wraps miniature fingers around Dr. Mitchell's gloved hand and refuses to let go. "She's absolutely beautiful," Dr. Mitchell whispers, tears visible above her surgical mask. Small, but her vital signs are remarkably strong for a baby born at 31 weeks. Victoria surfaces from the medicated haze to see Jimmy, the maintenance worker, leaning over her daughter's bassinet with an expression that stops her heart. There's tenderness there so profound it takes her breath away. Protection so fierce it radiates from every line of his carefully disguised face. Love so deep and unconditional that it can't be hidden by gray hair and colored contact lenses. "Daddy," she whispers, her voice barely audible above the medical equipment. Jimmy's disguise is flawlessly constructed. Prosthetic wrinkles that add 20 years to his appearance, gray hair that looks completely natural, contact lenses that change his distinctive steel gray eyes to ordinary brown, clothes that smell like industrial cleaner and carry the authentic wear patterns of a man who's spent years doing manual labor. But a father's love for his child can't be disguised or hidden or altered by any amount of theatrical makeup. "Hello, sweetheart," he says softly, dropping the roughened accent he's been maintaining for 3 days. "Meet your daughter. How did you get in here? How did you manage this? I've been watching over you for 72 hours, William explains, removing the baseball cap to reveal more of his actual features. "The moment Sloan put out that contract, it landed on my desk within 6 hours. I've had cybersecurity specialists monitoring dark web assassination markets since you married Marcus." Dr. Mitchell stares between them, her exhaustion giving way to confusion as she processes what she's witnessing. "I don't understand what's happening here." "Dr. Mitchell," William says, removing the gray wig to reveal his actual silver hair. "Meet William Sterling, Victoria's father, your hospital's largest financial donor for the past 8 years, and as of tonight, your partner in putting some extremely dangerous people in federal prison for the rest of their lives." The surgical suite door opens with pneumatic precision. Detective Ray Morrison enters with a full team of federal agents, all wearing surgical masks and sterile gowns to maintain the operating room's clean environment. "Mr. Sterling," Detective Morrison says, producing an official badge. "We have everything we need. Complete audio recordings, video surveillance from multiple angles, comprehensive financial records, and documented evidence of conspiracy to commit murder for hire. Marcus Hammond and Sloan Carmichael are both in federal custody as of 10 minutes ago." Victoria tries to sit up on the operating table, still groggy from the medications but desperate to understand what's happening. "Marcus has been arrested. He's been recording his own conversations for us," William explains, sitting beside her bed while still wearing parts of his maintenance worker costume. "For the past hour, he's been sending text messages to what he believed was a professional hitman, coordinating the details of your murder. Instead, he was communicating directly with federal agents." Victoria looks at her daughter, then at her father, trying to process the scope of what's been planned and executed around her. "You saved us. You saved yourself, sweetheart. You trusted your instincts and called me when it mattered most. Everything else was just logistics." Dr. Mitchell checks Victoria's IV line, adjusting the flow rate of the antidotes that have been neutralizing the anticoagulants in her bloodstream. "The medications we've administered should completely reverse the effects of the blood thinners within the next 12 hours. Your body chemistry should return to normal pregnancy parameters." "What happens to Marcus now?" Victoria asks, surprised by how little emotion she feels when she says his name. Detective Morrison pulls out his tablet, showing arrest photographs and formal charges. "We have sufficient evidence to charge Marcus Hammond with attempted murder in the first degree, conspiracy to commit murder, reckless endangerment of a minor, and approximately 8 other federal felonies. Sloan Carmichael is facing identical charges, plus additional counts of solicitation of murder for hire." William sits beside Victoria's bed, still wearing the maintenance worker's uniform that allowed him to move through the hospital undetected. There's something else you need to know. The financial investigation revealed that Marcus has been embezzling from his investment firm for over a year, nearly $2 million in total. He was planning to disappear with Sloan, Victoria realizes, the pieces clicking into place. After I was gone, the life insurance payout was just the beginning of their plan. Marcus had already transferred most of your joint assets to offshore accounts accessible only to him. If tonight had gone according to their schedule, he and Sloan would have vanished with over $5 million. Victoria remembers their last anniversary dinner 6 weeks ago. How distracted Marcus seemed throughout the entire evening. How he kept checking his phone between courses. How he suggested updating their life insurance policies just to be safe with the baby coming. How he'd insisted on ordering her favorite wine, then watched her drink every sip with an intensity she'd mistaken for romantic attention. How he'd been poisoning her slowly, methodically, for weeks before tonight's planned finale. Victoria does something she hasn't done in years. She laughs, not from humor, but from the sheer absurdity of it all, from the relief of finally seeing clearly after months of being systematically gaslit and poisoned. I can't believe I almost let him convince me you were the villain in this story, she tells her father, tears streaming down her face. William removes the last pieces of his maintenance worker disguise, revealing the face she's missed for 3 years. I was never the villain, sweetheart. I was just the overprotective father who couldn't prove his suspicions until Marcus gave us enough evidence to destroy him. The baby opens her eyes for the first time, revealing steel gray irises identical to William's and Victoria's. 3 generations of sterling women, and this newest addition will grow up knowing she's protected by people who would die before letting harm come to her. What are we going to name her? William asks softly, his voice thick with emotion. Victoria looks at her daughter, at her father, at the federal agents documenting evidence that will put her would-be killers in prison for decades. Hope, she says without hesitation. Hope Sterling, not Hope Hammond. Victoria meets her father's eyes with absolute certainty. She doesn't need his name. She's got ours. Dr. Mitchell provides medical updates while the baby's vital signs stabilize. All indicators are excellent for a baby born at 31 weeks. She'll need to stay in the NICU for monitoring, but I expect a full recovery with no lasting effects from the prenatal exposure to anticoagulants. Detective Morrison adds crucial information about the investigation. The Financial Crimes Unit has traced Marcus's embezzlement back 14 months. He's been systematically stealing from client accounts to cover gambling debts and fund his relationship with Sloan Carmichael. William's expression darkens. There's more. The forensic accountants found evidence suggesting this isn't Marcus's first attempt at murder for profit. We're reopening investigations into 2 previous deaths, women he was involved with who died under suspicious circumstances. Victoria's blood chills. Other women, Jessica Chen in Chicago, 3 years ago. Apparent food poisoning, but the symptoms match anticoagulant poisoning. Sarah Williams in Denver, 2 years ago. Fatal allergic reaction, but she had no known allergies. Both were involved with Marcus. Both had substantial life insurance policies naming him as beneficiary. The scope of Marcus's deception hits Victoria like a physical blow. She wasn't his first victim. She was just the most profitable, the one with the wealthiest father and the largest potential payout. How many women has he killed? She whispers. Detective Morrison checks his notes. We're investigating 4 suspicious deaths over the past 5 years. Marcus appears to have been systematically targeting women with substantial assets or wealthy families. Victoria sits in silence, holding hope while processing the magnitude of her narrow escape. She watches her father complete his transformation from Jimmy Dorino back into William Sterling, removing the prosthetic wrinkles and colored contact lenses that allowed him to move undetected through the hospital. Piece by piece, her daddy emerges from the elaborate disguise. The man who taught her to ride a bicycle and helped her with calculus homework, who stayed up all night when she had pneumonia at age 7, who walked her down the aisle even though he knew Marcus would eventually try to kill her, who risked everything to save her and his granddaughter. How long have you been planning this? Victoria asks. Since the day you married him. William admits, I knew he was dangerous, but I couldn't prove it without evidence that would hold up in federal court. So I waited and watched and prepared for the day when he would reveal his true nature. Hope opens her tiny eyes and looks directly at Victoria, as if seeing her mother for the first time. In that moment, Victoria feels something she hasn't experienced in months, absolute certainty about her future. The baby grips Victoria's finger with surprising strength, and William Sterling knows that every risk he's taken tonight has been justified by this moment. His family is safe. His enemies are in federal custody. Justice has been served with the same precision he applies to every challenge in his life. "We're going home," Victoria says quietly, looking at her father and daughter. "All of us, together." For the first time in 3 years, William Sterling smiles with genuine joy. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going home." The interrogation room door slams shut with the finality of a coffin lid sealing a grave. Marcus Hammond sits in federal custody, his expensive Italian suit wrinkled and sweat-stained, his perfectly styled hair disheveled from hours of stress. The handcuffs around his wrists are standard government issue, cold steel that matches the temperature in his eyes as he realizes his carefully constructed plan has collapsed completely. Across from him, Detective Ray Morrison spreads evidence across the metal table like a poker player, revealing a royal flush. Printed emails spanning 2 years, bank statements showing systematic embezzlement, surveillance photographs documenting meetings with Sloan Carmichael, audio recordings of phone conversations discussing poison dosages and murder timelines. "Let's establish a timeline," Detective Morrison says with the calm professionalism of someone who's interrogated hundreds of suspects. "When did Sloan Carmichael first suggest killing your wife?" "I never agreed to kill anyone," Marcus says, but his voice lacks conviction. The evidence surrounding him tells a different story. "No, but you agreed to slowly poison her with anticoagulants," Detective Morrison continues, sliding a photograph across the table. "The blood thinners weren't meant to kill Victoria quickly. They were designed to create complications during childbirth that would appear completely natural." The photograph shows Marcus at Westfield Pharmacy, purchasing rat poison containing warfarin. The timestamp indicates 3 weeks ago, exactly when Victoria's prenatal vitamins started tasting different. Rat poison. Marcus's court-appointed attorney shifts uncomfortably in his chair, realizing his client's situation is far worse than initially briefed. "Small doses, carefully measured and mixed into prenatal vitamins," Detective Morrison explains. "Extremely clever. Actually, creates precisely the kind of blood clotting issues that can kill during delivery. No coroner would question complications during a high-risk pregnancy." In the adjacent interrogation room, Sloan Carmichael has already provided a complete confession to federal agents. Her statement plays on a mounted monitor, her voice flat and emotionless as she describes months of planning. "Marcus said it had to appear completely natural," Sloan's recorded image explains. "He said if Victoria died during childbirth, no one would suspect murder. The life insurance money would provide us with enough capital to disappear permanently. We researched locations with no extradition treaties." Back in the hospital, Victoria holds her daughter while William explains the full scope of the conspiracy that nearly destroyed their family. "Sloan's been planning this systematically for 8 months," he says, reviewing federal investigation files on his tablet. "Since she discovered you were pregnant. She knew about the pregnancy before I told Marcus." William's expression darkens with paternal fury. "Marcus told her the same night you took the pregnancy test. While you were still processing the news emotionally, he was already calculating how to use the pregnancy to kill you profitably." Victoria's sister Grace arrives directly from her nursing shift at St. Mary's Hospital, still wearing scrubs and carrying the exhaustion of someone who's worked a 12-hour overnight shift. When she sees the baby for the first time, she immediately starts crying. "She's absolutely perfect," Grace whispers, reaching out to touch Hope's tiny hand. "What's her name?" Victoria looks at her father, then at her daughter. "Hope. Hope Sterling." "Just Hope Sterling," William agrees. "She doesn't need his surname." Dr. Mitchell enters with additional paperwork and a grim expression that suggests more disturbing revelations. "Victoria, there's something else the blood work revealed. Evidence of long-term nutritional deficiencies that suggests this poisoning campaign has been ongoing much longer than 2 weeks." "How much longer?" "Possibly since early pregnancy, maybe even before conception. The symptoms would have been extremely subtle initially: chronic fatigue, intermittent nausea, occasional dizziness, very easy to attribute to normal pregnancy symptoms or work stress. Victoria's grief transforms into white-hot fury. He was trying to kill our baby from the very beginning. William places a protective hand on Hope's bassinet, his voice carrying the steel of a man who's built an empire by destroying his enemies. He'll never get near either of you again. I'll spend every dollar I have to ensure that. Elena Rodriguez arrives with fresh clothes from Victoria's closet and her favorite blanket from home, the one her mother made before she died. Elena has been crying, her usual composed demeanor shattered by the realization of how close she came to losing the girl she helped raise. Senora Victoria, I am so very sorry, Elena says, her accented English thick with emotion. I should have known something was wrong. The way he watched you eat every meal, the way he insisted on preparing your vitamins personally every morning. I knew it felt wrong, but I thought maybe he was just trying to be a good husband. Elena, this is absolutely not your fault, Victoria says firmly. He fooled everyone. Even trained federal agents needed months to build a case against him. I knew something was wrong in my heart, but I convinced myself maybe he was just being protective because of the baby. Victoria's inner voice speaks with crystal clarity. Even the people who love me most couldn't see through his manipulation. I'm not stupid for trusting him. I'm strong for surviving him. Detective Morrison enters the hospital room with updates that make everyone fall silent. Sloane Carmichael's confession has implicated Marcus in 3 additional suspicious deaths over the past 5 years, he reports. 2 previous girlfriends and 1 business partner. We're reopening all those cases with homicide investigators. The scope of Marcus's systematic predation hits Victoria like a physical assault. She wasn't his first victim. She was simply the most profitable target in a pattern of murder that spans half a decade. Other women, Victoria whispers, holding Hope closer. Jessica Chen, 26 years old, died of apparent food poisoning in Chicago. Sarah Williams, 31, fatal allergic reaction in Denver, despite no known allergies. Rebecca Santos, 28, car accident with suspicious brake failure in Phoenix. All were romantically involved with Marcus. All had substantial life insurance policies. Victoria sits in stunned silence, processing the reality that she married a serial killer who specialized in making murder look like natural causes or accidents. Dr. Mitchell provides a breathing room moment by focusing on medical care. Let's get you moved to a private recovery room where you can rest properly. Hope will stay in the NICU for monitoring, but you'll be able to visit her whenever you want. The transfer to the private wing gives Victoria time to process the magnitude of her escape. She watches her father complete his transformation from Jimmy Torino back into William Sterling, removing the last traces of the elaborate disguise that saved their lives. He peels off the prosthetic wrinkles that aged him 20 years, removes the colored contact lenses that changed his distinctive steel gray eyes to ordinary brown, strips away the gray wig to reveal his actual silver hair. Piece by piece, her daddy emerges from the costume that allowed him to protect her when she needed it most. How did you know? Victoria asks. How did you know he would eventually try to kill me? William sits beside her hospital bed, wearing his actual clothes for the first time in 3 days. Men like Marcus follow predictable patterns. They start with psychological manipulation, move to financial control, then escalate to physical threats when their victims try to escape. I've been tracking his behavior since your wedding day. You hired investigators to watch my marriage. I hired investigators to protect my daughter. There's a difference. Victoria realizes that her father's love has been surrounding her constantly, even during the 3 years when she refused to speak to him, even when she told him to stay away from her life. I'm sorry, she whispers. I'm sorry I didn't listen to your warnings. I'm sorry I chose him over you. William takes her hand, his fingers warm and steady and familiar. You have nothing to apologize for. Sweetheart, you followed your heart. You believed in love. Those are beautiful qualities, even when they're exploited by someone who doesn't deserve them. Hope opens her eyes and looks directly at Victoria, as if truly seeing her mother for the first time. In that moment, Victoria feels something she hasn't experienced in months. Absolute certainty about her future. The future that will belong to her and her daughter, and the father who never stopped protecting them, even when protection required becoming someone else entirely. We're going to be okay, Victoria says, the words carrying the weight of a promise. All of us. We're going to be more than okay. For the first time in 3 years, that statement feels completely true. The courtroom gavel bangs like thunder, rolling across a landscape that's been scorched clean by lightning. 6 weeks later, Victoria sits in the front row of federal district court, Hope sleeping peacefully in her arms. The baby has grown strong and healthy in the NICU, defying every prediction about premature infants exposed to anticoagulant poisoning before birth. Her pediatricians describe her recovery as nothing short of miraculous. Marcus Hammond's trial has become a media sensation that captivates the entire country. The pregnancy poison plot screams every major newspaper. Billionaire father's undercover operation saves daughter from murder conspiracy leads the evening news broadcasts. The prosecution presents a case so comprehensively devastating that the defense team requires 3 full days just to review the evidence against their client. Financial records documenting Marcus's systematic embezzlement spanning 14 months. Audio recordings of him coordinating assassination plans with Sloan Carmichael. Video surveillance of him purchasing industrial rat poison and tampering with his wife's prenatal vitamins. But the most damning evidence comes directly from Marcus himself. The text messages he believed he was sending to a professional hitman, but were actually being monitored by federal agents building an airtight case. Make it look like childbirth complications. Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Walsh reads aloud to the 12-person jury. Quote, "No one questions when pregnant women die in hospitals. Natural causes. No investigation required." End quote. Victoria watches Marcus's face as his own words condemn him in front of the people who will determine his fate. There's no remorse visible in his expression. No acknowledgement of the lives he tried to destroy. Only anger at being caught. Fury that his perfect plan failed because he underestimated the protective instincts of a father who never stopped loving his daughter. Only resentment that he won't be collecting the $5 million he believed would fund his new life with Sloan Carmichael. Sloan testifies against Marcus in exchange for a reduced sentence. Her voice emotionless as she describes months of meticulous planning. She explains their research into untraceable poisons, their study of Victoria's daily routines, their careful calculation of insurance payouts and asset transfers. Marcus said Victoria was simply an obstacle to our happiness, Sloan tells the jury, her tone flat and clinical. He said once she was eliminated, we could be together openly without hiding our relationship. With her inheritance and the life insurance settlement, we calculated we'd never need to work again. When Victoria takes the witness stand on the trial's 4th day, the courtroom falls into complete silence. She's lost all the pregnancy weight and more, her cheekbones sharp with the stress of the past 2 months. But her voice carries the unshakable strength of someone who's survived the unthinkable. "I loved my husband completely," she says simply, her words carrying clearly through the packed chamber. "I trusted him with my life in the most literal sense possible. Every morning, I took vitamins he provided, believing he cared about my health and our baby's development. Every afternoon, I drank smoothies he prepared, thinking he wanted to give our daughter the best possible start in life." Her voice never wavers, never breaks, even when she describes the gradual poisoning that nearly killed them both. Instead, Marcus was systematically destroying our daughter's chances of survival while planning my death to look like natural complications during childbirth. The defense attorney attempts to shake her testimony during cross-examination. "Mrs. Hammond, isn't it possible you're being influenced by your father's substantial wealth and legal resources? That this entire case represents elaborate revenge against your husband for damaging your relationship with your family?" Victoria's response carries the clarity of absolute truth. "My father didn't make Marcus purchase rat poison from 3 different pharmacies. My father didn't make Marcus send text messages coordinating my assassination. My father didn't make Marcus embezzle $2 million from his investment clients. My father simply ensured I lived long enough to testify about what Marcus did to our family." Victoria is no longer the naive woman who ignored warning signs because she wanted to believe in fairy tale love. She has become someone who sees clearly, speaks truth without flinching, and protects what matters most with unwavering determination. During the lunch recess, Victoria and William sit in the courthouse cafeteria while Hope naps in her carrier. The baby gurgles contentedly, completely unaware that her existence helped save her mother's life by providing the evidence federal agents needed to build their case. "You know," William says, adjusting Hope's blanket with the gentle precision of a grandfather who's discovered unexpected joy. She looks exactly like you did at this age. I can't remember being that small. I remember everything. You were absolutely fearless from the moment you could crawl, always reaching for things just beyond your grasp, always trusting that someone would catch you if you fell. Victoria studies her father's face, seeing the love that never wavered even when she told him to stay away from her life. Why didn't you fight harder to prevent me from marrying him? Because you needed to learn to trust your own judgment. I could warn you about Marcus, but I couldn't live your life for you. Some lessons can only be learned through personal experience, no matter how painful that experience becomes. But you protected me anyway. You've been watching over me this entire time. William adjusts Hope's carrier with practiced ease. That's what fathers do. Sweetheart, we protect our children, even when they don't want our protection, even when protection requires extraordinary measures. In the courthouse hallway during another recess, Victoria overhears two jurors discussing the case. I can't believe we all thought he seemed like such a nice, devoted husband during jury selection. He had every single one of us completely fooled. The truth about Marcus is finally visible to everyone who encounters him. No more charm offensive, no more psychological manipulation. Just the cold reality of what he actually is beneath the carefully constructed facade. Victoria finds herself compulsively checking her phone throughout the day, then realizes she's unconsciously looking for threatening messages that will never come again. She's completely free. The jury deliberates for exactly 47 minutes before returning with their verdict. The foreman stands, his voice carrying through the packed courtroom with absolute authority. On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, we find the defendant Marcus Hammond guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder for hire, we find the defendant Marcus Hammond guilty. On the charge of reckless endangerment of a minor, we find the defendant Marcus Hammond guilty. On the charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, we find the defendant Marcus Hammond guilty. The list continues for 8 additional charges. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Judge Patricia Harrison sentences Marcus to 25 years to life in federal prison without possibility of parole for 15 years. In a separate trial 2 weeks later, Sloan Carmichael receives 15 years to life with possibility of parole after 10 years. Both will be middle-aged when they're first eligible for release. If they survive their sentences at all, justice has been served with mathematical precision. As they leave the courthouse, Victoria carries Hope while William coordinates with their security team. The media attention has been intense, but federal marshals have provided protection throughout the trial proceedings. It's over, Victoria says, the words carrying the weight of absolute finality. Yes, sweetheart, it's finally over. Hope opens her eyes and looks directly at her mother, as if understanding that they've crossed from danger into safety, from betrayal into unconditional love, from isolation into the protection of family that will never abandon them. 3 generations of sterling women, stronger than ever. The courthouse steps feel like the beginning of something new, rather than the end of something terrible. Victoria realizes she's unconsciously counting her blessings instead of her fears. 1. A daughter who survived against impossible odds. 2. A father whose love never wavered despite 3 years of separation. 3. A sister who rearranged her entire career to stay close to her family. 4. A future that belongs entirely to them. 5. The absolute certainty that they will never be victims again. The counting technique her father taught her for managing anxiety has become a practice of gratitude that will sustain her for the rest of her life. The sound of keys turning in a new lock carries the weight of fresh beginnings and hard-won freedom. Victoria opens the door to her new home, a beautiful colonial revival in her father's exclusive gated community, carrying Hope, who's now 3 months old and babbling happily at everything she sees. The baby reaches for the sunlight streaming through tall windows, her tiny fingers grasping at dust motes that dance in the golden afternoon light. What do you think? Baby girl, does this feel like home? The house has been furnished with meticulous attention to both comfort and security. Every room reflects William's understanding of what his daughter needs to heal from trauma while building a new life. Soft colors that promote peace, natural light that fights depression, spaces designed for a growing family that will never again have to fear for their safety. The nursery is painted in soft yellows and greens, with a mural of a garden where fictional butterflies land on painted flowers that will never die. The master bedroom overlooks a real garden where Hope will learn to walk among roses that bloom every spring. The kitchen is large enough for family gatherings that will happen regularly now that the Sterling family has been reunited. William spared no expense ensuring his daughter and granddaughter would be comfortable and protected for the rest of their lives. The security system is state-of-the-art but invisible. The neighborhood is patrolled by private guards who look like ordinary residents. The house itself is beautiful enough to be featured in architectural magazines, but fortified enough to withstand anything short of military assault. Elena Rodriguez unpacks boxes in the spacious kitchen, humming softly in Spanish while she arranges dishes and utensils with the care of someone creating a home rather than simply organizing possessions. She refused William's generous offer to retire with full pension and benefits, insisting that Victoria and Hope need her now more than ever. "The baby's room is absolutely beautiful," Elena says, folding tiny clothes with the reverence reserved for precious things. "Your father, he has exquisite taste when it matters most." "He always did," Victoria replies, watching Hope track the movement of tree branches outside the window. "I just forgot that for a while." Grace arrives with groceries and takeout from Victoria's favorite Italian restaurant, the one near her college campus where they used to eat when the world seemed simpler and safer. The three women sit around the kitchen island sharing food and conversation while Hope naps in her carrier, surrounded by the kind of domestic peace that seemed impossible just months ago. "I have significant news," Grace announces, pulling official documents from her purse. "St. Mary's Hospital offered me a position as head nurse in their NICU department. Substantially better hours, much better compensation, and I'll be working directly with Dr. Mitchell on high-risk cases. That's wonderful news for your career. I figured Hope might want her aunt nearby as she grows up," Grace says with a smile. "Plus, someone needs to keep you from becoming a complete recluse while you recover from everything that happened." Victoria feels tears welling up as she realizes how dramatically her support system has expanded. For months during her marriage to Marcus, she felt isolated and alone, cut off from family and friends who might have recognized the warning signs of abuse. Now she's surrounded by people who genuinely care about her welfare and want nothing except her happiness and Hope's healthy development. People who would die before letting harm come to either of them. William arrives for dinner carrying a briefcase and wearing the satisfied expression of a man who spent the afternoon systematically destroying his enemies through legal channels. He's been coordinating with federal prosecutors to ensure that Marcus and Sloan remain in prison for the maximum possible time. "I have updates regarding the financial recovery situation," he says, spreading documents across the kitchen table with the precision of someone presenting a business proposal. Marcus's remaining assets have been completely liquidated to pay restitution to his investment firm and the families of his previous victims. However, there's excellent news for you personally. He points to specific clauses in legal documents that Victoria recognizes as her prenuptial agreement. Your prenup becomes completely null and void if either party is convicted of a felony against the other party. Marcus's conviction means you retain full legal rights to all marital assets acquired during your marriage. "I don't want anything that belonged to him," Victoria says immediately. "His money feels contaminated." "It's not his money, sweetheart. These assets represent what he stole from you, from his clients, from other women he victimized over the years. You can do whatever you want with the recovered funds, but you should claim them." Victoria considers this while watching Hope sleep peacefully in the afternoon sunlight. With the recovered assets, she could start a foundation to help other women who've experienced intimate partner violence. She could fund research into slow poisoning cases that often go undetected by medical professionals. She could turn her trauma into something that saves other people's lives. "I want to start a nonprofit organization," she says quietly, the decision crystallizing as she speaks. "For women who've experienced intimate partner violence, especially cases involving financial abuse and systematic poisoning." William smiles with genuine pride, the expression of a father who's watched his daughter transform tragedy into purpose. "I'll match whatever funding you commit to the foundation. Dollar for dollar, no limits." Dr. Mitchell calls with Hope's latest test results from her regular NICU follow-up appointments. "Perfect health across every single measurement," she reports. "No lasting developmental effects from the prenatal anticoagulant exposure. She's going to be absolutely fine." Victoria holds Hope up to the large kitchen window, watching late afternoon sunlight filter across her daughter's perfect features. "You hear that? Sweetheart, doctor," Mitchell says you're going to be just fine. Victoria remembers being 5 years old, standing in this exact same spot in her childhood home. Her mother was still alive then, vibrant and loving and convinced that the future held nothing but wonderful possibilities. The three of them would have elaborate tea parties in the garden every Sunday afternoon, with real china and imaginary cookies and conversations about everything Hope would accomplish when she grew up. Now Hope will grow up in the same garden, surrounded by the same unconditional love and unlimited possibilities. William joins them at the window, producing a small velvet jewelry box from his jacket pocket. I have something special for you. Inside the box is Victoria's mother's original wedding ring, not the elaborate diamond setting from her marriage to William, but the simple gold band she wore when she was young and optimistic and believed that love could overcome any obstacle. Your mother specifically wanted you to have this when you found genuine love, William says softly. Not the desperate kind that makes you compromise your values. Not the manipulative kind that isolates you from family. The authentic kind that makes you stronger instead of weaker. Victoria slips the ring onto her right hand, where it fits perfectly as if it was always meant to be there. I think I'm beginning to understand what real love actually looks like. Hope reaches up with remarkable coordination for a 3-month-old baby and grabs Victoria's finger, the one wearing her grandmother's ring. 3 generations of sterling women, connected by love and strength and the absolute determination to protect what matters most. The afternoon sun begins to set through the kitchen windows, painting everything in golden light that makes the house feel like a sanctuary rather than simply a place to live. Victoria realizes she's unconsciously counting her blessings instead of her fears, using the technique her father taught her but applying it to gratitude instead of anxiety management. 1. A daughter who survived against impossible medical odds. 2. A father whose love never wavered despite 3 years of separation. 3. A sister who restructured her entire career to stay close to family. 4. A home where she feels safe enough to heal completely. 5. A future that belongs entirely to her and Hope. 6. The knowledge that she'll never be anyone's victim again. 7. The resources to help other women escape situations like the one she survived. 8. The absolute certainty that love shouldn't hurt or isolate or diminish. 9. A family that's stronger now than it was before the crisis tested their bonds. 10. The peaceful knowledge that Hope will grow up surrounded by people who would die before letting harm come to her. The counting technique has evolved from crisis management to celebration of abundance. As evening settles over their new home, Victoria understands that this house represents more than safety or comfort. It represents the beginning of a life where love multiplies strength instead of destroying it, where family loyalty means protection rather than control, where the future belongs to people who refuse to be victims of anyone's manipulation or violence. Hope falls asleep in her mother's arms while William reads financial reports and Elena prepares traditional Spanish lullabies for their evening routine. The domestic peace feels foreign after months of living with constant underlying threat, but Victoria knows she'll adapt to happiness the same way she survived terror. By taking everything one day at a time, surrounded by love that asks for nothing except the chance to keep her safe. Children's laughter fills the garden like music composed specifically for this moment, this celebration, this declaration that love has triumphed over evil. 1 year later, Victoria hosts the first annual fundraiser for the Sterling Foundation for Women's Safety. The meticulously maintained lawn of her father's estate is transformed into a festival of hope, filled with survivors and supporters and advocates who understand that recovery is possible with the right resources and unwavering family support. Hope toddles around the garden with the fearless determination of a 15-month-old who's never known anything except unconditional love and absolute security. She chases butterflies with chubby hands that reach for everything just beyond her grasp, exactly like her mother did at the same age. Her laughter rings out across the gathering like church bells announcing a miracle. At 15 months old, Hope is already showing signs of the Sterling family intelligence and determination. She speaks in complete sentences that amaze pediatricians. She solves puzzles designed for children twice her age. She displays an uncanny ability to sense when adults around her need comfort, offering hugs with the intuitive wisdom of someone who was loved before she was born. The foundation has already exceeded every goal Victoria set for its first year of operation. 43 women have escaped abusive relationships with comprehensive support that includes legal representation, financial assistance, temporary housing, and psychological counseling. 37 children have received educational scholarships and trauma therapy. The Foundation's research division has identified 17 cases of slow poisoning that might have gone undetected without their intervention. Victoria speaks to the crowd with the confidence of someone who's transformed personal tragedy into public service. Her voice carries clearly across the gathering, strong and clear and absolutely certain of her message. A year ago, I believed my story was ending, she tells the audience of survivors and supporters. I was 7 months pregnant, slowly being poisoned by the man I'd trusted with my life, isolated from the family who could have protected me. I thought I was trapped in a situation with no escape except death. She pauses, looking out over the faces of women who've survived similar ordeals, many of them holding children who represent their motivation to keep fighting. Instead, that night was just the beginning of my real life. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the catalyst for the best thing that happens to you. Sometimes the people who try to destroy you end up revealing strength you never knew you possessed. Detective Morrison attends the fundraiser with his wife and twin daughters, bringing updates on Marcus and Sloane's unsuccessful appeals. Both have exhausted their legal options and will remain in federal prison for the foreseeable future. Marcus received 25 years to life, he reports during a quiet conversation with Victoria. Sloane received 15 years to life. They'll both be eligible for parole eventually, but not for many years. And when that time comes, we'll be ready, Victoria responds with quiet confidence. I'm not the same woman I was a year ago. None of us are. Dr. Mitchell brings her own daughter to the fundraiser, watching the two little girls play together while the adults discuss the Foundation's medical advocacy program for poison victims. The collaboration between the Foundation and major hospitals has already revolutionized how medical professionals recognize and treat cases of systematic poisoning. We're identifying more cases like yours every month, Dr. Mitchell explains. Slow poisoning designed to mimic natural medical conditions or pregnancy complications. Your Foundation's awareness campaign is saving lives across the country. William works the fundraising crowd with the experienced efficiency of a businessman who spent decades building coalitions and securing financial commitments. But his attention constantly returns to Hope, who has wrapped him completely around her tiny finger with the same determination her mother once used to claim his heart. She's going to be trouble, Grace observes, watching Hope charm another potential donor into giving her his expensive watch to examine. The absolute best kind of trouble, Victoria agrees, laughing as Hope attempts to eat the watch before being gently redirected toward her actual toys. As the sun begins to set over the estate, the core family gathers on the front porch while Hope naps in Victoria's arms. Elena brings out coffee and homemade cookies, the same recipe she's been perfecting for the Sterling family for 15 years. You know what I realized today, Victoria says, stroking Hope's soft hair while watching the last guests enjoy the garden party. I spent so many years trying to become someone Marcus would love that I completely forgot who I actually was underneath all that desperate people-pleasing. And now, Grace asks, settling into the porch swing with her own cup of coffee. Now I know exactly who I am. I'm Hope's mother, William Sterling's daughter, a woman who survived attempted murder and turned that survival into a mission to help other women escape similar situations. Victoria has found peace not through revenge or hatred, but through purpose that transforms personal trauma into public service. She's discovered strength she never knew she possessed and learned to trust instincts that kept her alive when logic and love failed her. William joins them on the porch as the last fundraiser guests say their goodbyes, carrying the satisfied expression of a man who's watched his daughter build something meaningful from the ashes of her worst experience. I'm proud of you, he says simply, settling into the chair beside Victoria's. I'm proud of us. We make an excellent team when we're working together instead of apart. We always did. I just had to wait for you to remember that. Hope wakes up from her nap and immediately reaches for her grandfather with the expectant smile of a child who's never been disappointed by the adults in her life. As William takes her, she babbles something that sounds remarkably like, Papa, clear enough that all three adults freeze in amazement. Did she just say her first real word? William's eyes fill with tears of joy. Her first word? Victoria laughs. And of course it's for you. Victoria watches her father and daughter together, realizing she's unconsciously using the counting technique he taught her for anxiety management. But instead of counting to control fear, she's counting to catalog abundance. 1. A daughter who survived prenatal poisoning and thrives more each day. 2. A father whose love never wavered despite 3 years of separation. 3. A sister who rearranged her entire life to stay close to family. 4. A home where she feels safe enough to heal completely from trauma. 5. A foundation that's already saving other women's lives. 6. The absolute certainty that she'll never be anyone's victim again. 7. Financial independence that allows her to help others escape abuse. 8. The knowledge that real love should strengthen rather than diminish. 9. A family that's stronger now than before the crisis tested their bonds. 10. The peaceful understanding that Hope will grow up knowing she's unconditionally loved and protected. The counting technique has evolved completely from crisis management to gratitude practice. Victoria's phone buzzes with a text message, and for just a split second, her heart stops with conditioned fear. Then she sees it's from a woman who found her through the Foundation's website, and the fear transforms into purpose. "Thank you for showing me it's possible to start over." The message reads, "Your story gave me the courage to leave my abusive husband. I have a baby due in 3 months, and I want her to grow up as strong as you are." Victoria smiles and puts the phone away without responding immediately. She'll write back tomorrow, during business hours, with comprehensive information about the Foundation's resources and support systems. Tonight belongs to family and celebration, and the quiet joy of knowing that her survival has meaning beyond her own healing. Her story isn't ending with personal recovery. It's inspiring new beginnings for other women who need to understand that escape is possible, that family love can overcome manipulation, that strength emerges from the most unlikely places. As Hope falls asleep in William's arms, Victoria speaks the truth she's learned through fire and betrayal and the absolute determination to protect what matters most. The people who try to destroy you often end up revealing strength you never knew you possessed. I thought Marcus was my love story. It turns out he was just the prologue to my real life. Hope opens her eyes one final time before sleep claims her completely, looking directly at Victoria with steel gray eyes that match her mother's and grandfather's. She smiles the same determined smile that got William through building a business empire, that got Victoria through attempted murder, and that will carry Hope through whatever challenges the future might bring. 3 generations of sterling women, connected by love that multiplies strength instead of dividing it. The garden grows quiet as evening settles over the estate, filled with the peaceful silence of a family that's been tested by the worst imaginable circumstances and emerged stronger than ever. Hope's contented sighs mixed with the sound of wind through leaves and the distant laughter of Elena cleaning up after a successful celebration. Victoria Sterling and her daughter are safe. They're loved beyond measure. They're surrounded by family who would die before letting harm come to them. And they're just getting started building a life where love means protection instead of control, where family loyalty creates strength instead of obligation, where the future belongs to people who refuse to be diminished by anyone's cruelty or manipulation. The sun sets over their garden, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink that promise tomorrow will be even better than today. Hope sleeps in her grandfather's arms while Victoria and Grace plan foundation events that will save more lives and heal more families. This is what victory looks like when you survive the unthinkable and choose to build something beautiful from the wreckage. This is what love looks like when it's real. If this story left you questioning everything you thought you knew about trust and family loyalty, you're not alone. These real-life cases of domestic deception happen more often than we'd like to believe. But so do the miraculous rescues. Hit that like button if this story had you on the edge of your seat, and drop a comment below. Have you ever had a gut feeling about someone that turned out to be absolutely right? Share this video with someone who needs to hear that trusting your instincts can literally save your life. And don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell, because next week we're diving into another jaw-dropping true story that proves reality is stranger than any fiction Hollywood could create. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.